Hello and welcome back to my channel. In this video, we're going to dive into exactly how I am getting a super bright and airy look to my images when it comes to my brand, when I'm posting on social media, and basically just the content photos that you might see me using throughout my entire brand online. And I'm just gonna give you my top tips on exactly how to achieve a consistent look for your own brand and how you can do something really similar to what I am doing. So let's go ahead and dive into it. The first step to making sure that you have a consistent look to your images is thinking about how you want to edit your images. So when it comes to editing and the style, you can really go a lot of different directions with this. I personally love using my mobile presets to edit my images within the free mobile Lightroom app. We'll have those linked right down below if you like my light and airy style and you're interested in checking those out. But essentially, you want to make sure that overall your brand, when it comes to imagery, is very similar or very consistent, whether that is having more of a light and airy look, whether you want a true to life look, whether you want like warm and moody or something along those lines. It's really important to make sure that you are keeping in mind like, what do I want my overall brand to feel like, and then how can I convey that in the images that I am either using or editing. And so another thing I want to keep in mind, or want you to keep in mind here when it comes to the editing of your images, is to make sure you think about the photographers that you are hiring. So if you are doing maybe something like I do a combination of taking my own images either with my phone or with my DSLR, like with a self timer or something like that, and using those images for my brand in addition to hiring a photographer to come and take images for me. So that means that when I am hiring a photographer, whether it's for a branding photo shoot or whether it's for even like anniversary family photo shoots for me personally, I like to hire photographers where their style is going to be very consistent with my brand. And that doesn't mean that it has to be exact, right? Like exactly the same as if I was editing my own images, but it should be consistent enough that if someone's looking at your brand and coming across it for the first time, maybe they don't have an eye for design or photography or anything like that. Not saying that you have to be able to put together like an overall vibe for your brand, but basically, if someone's looking at your brand, it just makes sense, right? And they all kind of consistently flow together. So that's something that I'm always keeping in mind if I am hiring a photographer for a photo shoot, that at least their style is going to match mine enough that it's going to convey what I want for my brand when it comes to the images I'm sharing, so that they flow consistently in my Instagram feed or on my website or anything like that. All right, so the next thing we're gonna talk about is actually shooting the photos. And when I say shooting, I mean like photographing the photos, and a little bit of a peek into my process specifically for having a light and bright style. But even if you're not having a light and bright style, like just things to keep in mind when you're actually taking the images, whether you're working with a photographer or whether you are, maybe handing off your phone to a family member or a friend who can just snap some images for you. Here are some really important things to keep in mind when you're actually getting your photos taken. So number one is keep in mind the location. So when it comes to the location, then this might seem common sense, but I know when I first started my business and even started as a photographer, I didn't even really think about this, is the location you choose is going to dramatically affect how your images are going to look. In addition to that, when I say location, it can be the backdrop, it can be the type of lighting you're using. And I know all that might seem really technical, but you can think about it very, very simply. So for example, maybe if you have more of a light and bright brand like I do, you probably don't want to take all of your photos in front of like a dark gray or a dark green wall, right? Or if you're shooting in a park, you might not want to stand in front of the dark, heavy pine trees, right? Like pine trees are typically a very dark green. You might want to stand in front of the more like wispy, like willow tree or something that's going to be a little bit lighter in your images naturally, instead of trying to edit it later and make it look how you want it. So, for me and my brand, I gravitate more towards like white walls, neutral walls, pastel walls, locations that have generally just lighter backdrops, right? That are just going gonna match and flow with my brand really well. So no matter if I'm, doing the images myself or working with a photographer, that we're able to have a really good foundation, right, in the location that we're using for the images that we are shooting. Another thing when it comes to the location is lighting, and natural lighting is always going to be best, no matter if you're shooting indoors or if you are shooting outdoors. So natural light is generally going to be amazing just for a variety of reasons. It just obviously looks more natural. Usually it photographs really well and makes, just the overall image look a lot cleaner and more professional. And so if you're shooting outdoors, this means you'll want to shoot during the day when the sun is still out, right? If you're shooting indoors, kind of a similar concept. You want to be shooting when the sun is actually up and that there is daylight that you can work with inside. And I actually have a free lighting lesson. We'll have the link right below this video if you are interested in checking it out. It's a walkthrough of me showing you how I actually took photos in a small, seemingly dark room, and how I was still able to get really light and bright images for my editing style. So if you want to check that out, you can grab or sign up at the link below, and it's completely free, and you can sign up and watch it, and it walks you through exactly how, I'm getting that natural light inside of a home or something like that, even if I don't have a ton of window light to work with. So I think that'll be really helpful for you. Another thing when it comes under the umbrella of actually shooting your images and things to keep in mind, something I think that's often overlooked is the outfits that we are wearing. And so obviously if you have a personal brand, the outfits you wear are probably naturally going to go hand in hand with your brand because your brand is a personal brand and it's based off of you, right? But think about what you are wearing and how it can affect almost the mood of a photo. So if you are wanting this super light and airy and like dreamy photo in like a field or something, you probably aren't gonna wanna wear like your black ripped jeans and maybe cheetah print top, right? Like that doesn't match the overall vibe that you might be going for. Instead, you might want to wear like a light neutral dress or something like that, and how that fits into the photo that you're trying to create. So I just wanted to throw that tip in here because I know sometimes I get questions about like, you see certain images like, oh my gosh, those are so beautiful. Why don't mine look that way? Think also not only about the backdrops and using natural lighting, but also think about exactly what you're wearing, right? Make sure it reflects your brand so that, just fits overall with the either color scheme or the vibe that you're going for. And as I'm talking about, thinking about a vibe or what you want your brand to look like and things like that, if you've never created a mood board before, I highly encourage you to do that. That's something that, I would encourage you regardless of if you're going to use it for your content photos, do it for your brand as a whole and make sure that you have a good idea of what's the overall like feeling and what's the overall, just like with editing and design and colors, like what you want to convey in your brand. It's gonna make, this process of choosing like locations and choosing outfits and all of that so much easier because you can almost filter it through that. One place that I really like to do it is on Pinterest. That's where I've created a lot of mood boards, just pinning different things that either inspire me or that I want to use to reflect, like to get an idea of what I want my brand to look like. So it's as simple as just heading to Pinterest, creating a board, and going ahead and just pinning things and helping you to see visually what you might be envisioning in your mind. I know that's really helpful for me, whether it's for my brand as a whole, but even sometimes when I'm planning these photo shoots, especially if I'm doing something more planned out with a photographer, can be really helpful to have you guys on the same page visually and know exactly what you're going for. All right, now I want to touch a little bit on actually curating what images you're going to choose to share on social media. So when it comes to actually having like a consistent look that you are sharing across different, either Instagram or other social media or even on your website or blog or things like that, here are some really awesome things to keep in mind that are going to be really helpful. So the first one I want to say is actually that I think nowadays people want to see real over curated perfection. So I think a lot of us are craving just wanting that genuine connection, genuine. I think I said that right? Genuine. I just feel like it sounded weird. I feel like I said like genuine, genuine connection with the people that they follow. So I think people are over like, you know, feeds being like ultra curated and, you know, and I think that relieves a lot of pressure on us to feel like we have to spend hours curating our feeds anymore. And so I just want to encourage you that while I do think, you know, for me, I go for more with my specifically like Instagram feed or something along those lines, or even my website. I go for like consistency for my brand versus perfection for my brand. And just, you know, if I'm following those other things that we talked about in this video, when it comes to choosing locations, outfits, lighting, editing, all of those different things, if I'm being consistent with those things and generally wearing my brand colors, I'm shooting on backdrops that make sense for my brand, I am editing my images very similarly, working with photographers that have a very similar style to my brand, then I don't need to worry as much about curating my feed, if that makes sense. But here are a few specific tips, because I know we talk a lot about Instagram on here, and Instagram is usually where our mind goes when it comes to like curation and all of that. So here are a few specific things when it comes to having that consistency on Instagram. So the first one is having Reels cover photo templates, or cover photos that you use for your Reels, and usually that comes from a template. And I actually sell these in my shop, so we'll put a link to that product right down below if you're interested in checking it out, if you want to grab it. But it's a collection of 50 Reels cover photos for Canva. So you can use these to literally customize what your cover photos are going to look like. You can add your brand colors, you can add your images, you can, instead of having to take a screen grab from your Reels, you can create this cover photo that maybe has some of those images that you took when you were taking content photos. And so that's one way that I do like to help have some consistency. So when someone's scrolling through my feed on Instagram, it feels consistent, right? Like they see the images and think, oh, like that's Stephanie Case. And that's kind of the goal that we're going for. Another thing that can be really helpful, whether it's, I even think about this with if you want to have a certain look to your YouTube channel or a certain look to your Instagram feed, planning out can actually be really helpful with this. So I use a program called Later. We'll also have that linked down below if you want to sign up for a free trial of Labor. Well, actually it's like, there's a free, oh my gosh, what is even the word? It's like a free tier, I guess, that you can sign up for. And it has like literally, honestly, I don't pay to upgrade Later. I use a lot of the features that I use are within the free version. So you can use Later to help upgrade or to help plan out your Instagram feed, and that can also be really helpful if you're someone who is very visual like I am, and it just helps you to see it all laid out and make sure that it represents your brand well and that you're able to, plan out your feed in a way that's not perfect but consistent and that just flows and matches your brand and represents your brand well. And you can keep that same concept in mind for things like when you're creating your YouTube thumbnails or different things like that. It can be super helpful. But again, if you are doing all those things and making sure that your images are consistent for your brand when you are taking them, editing them, all of that, honestly, at the end of the day, I just don't worry as much about this idea of curating, and I would rather just have everything feel consistent and feel like if someone saw that individual post that they would instantly think of me, right? So I hope this was really helpful in getting you thinking about some things when it comes to having a consistent look to your images for your brand. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them down below. We'd love to answer them for you and help you in any way that we can. And as always, be sure to subscribe because we upload new videos around here every Tuesday at noon Eastern Standard Time. And so if you're someone who is wanting to learn more about creating content and you're trying to grow your brand through social media, that's what we talk about on this channel all the time. So I think you're gonna love it if you stick around, and thank you so much for tuning in. Bye guys.